what I will forever do, never be satisfied.
The West. Right now, the CCP is under fire from all fronts. So at this moment, the CCP does need Russia a lot. Of course, on the other hand, Russia also needs the CCP for its support from many fronts, that so it can have the ability to persist, you can say, to drag on, and hopefully, even if it's going to lose, not to lose too shamefully or badly.
All right, and now Gregory, many people call you King. So, King, Hong Kong was supposed to be one country, two systems. Now that didn't work. What's in store for Taiwan?
Well, Hong Kong has just showcased that the one country, two system is a broken promise. So basically anything that you see by the CCP nowadays, they're trying to say that, okay, the one country system works well, but when you see President Trump has already putting a full stop to the one country, two system, my fellow countrymen in Hong Kong and also my friends in Taiwan, they all understand. It's just a joke.
And one of the former presidents of Taiwan recently went to Beijing and said that we're all Chinese. What do you think about that, King? Did he cross a line? Did he betray his country there?
Well, I would say it's just a political stunt. Well, in Hong Kong or in Taiwan nowadays, a death of a puppy or a monkey or a chimpanzee loose from the zoo has more TV rating in some time visit China. So you can see the people's interest has just shifted. President Ma, he might want to have a historical footnote for his visit, But the thing is, even himself dare not to shout out the Republic of China or his own formal title, the President of Taiwan. When I compare the evening news in Hong Kong and Taiwan and the Chinese TV, you cannot hear any word that on the TV, Taiwan's president, and they even less Mr. Ma, they just Ma Ying-jeou visit China. So it's so ironic that, a former Taiwan president tried to finish his sort of legacy, but on the other side, the China side just would not recognize.
I see. Now, turning to Taiwan's current president, Jennifer, Tsai Ing-wen has...
New World Order is the dream of globalists to have.
It's unfortunate. We can't intervene on behalf of Taiwan. So that would be my sort of scenario.
Why is Taiwan so important to China? And frankly, why is Taiwan so important to the U.S.?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the question. And you hear a lot of people say, well, Taiwan isn't worth it. It's worth more to China than it is to us. It can't be defended. Just let it go. You hear that a lot in the debate these days. I think it's wrong. I think there's also an element of maliciousness in it. The idea of letting 23 million free people come under Chinese communist enslavement is not something that sits well with me. But why is it important? Well, first, look at it from China's perspective, and if you look at that, you can figure out why it's so important from the U.S. perspective. Surprisingly, it doesn't have so much to do with the high-end semiconductors that Taiwan manufactures. It gets a lot of attention. And yes, it would be an inconvenience, probably a big one, if Taiwan's semiconductor production was cut. They produce something like 90% of high-end semiconductors. But that, I don't think, is the main reason. I think with or without chips, Taiwan is a very juicy target for Beijing. And here's why. Taiwan is strategic terrain, strategic geography, if there ever was. It's part of the so-called First Island chain that stretches from Japan to Taiwan, down to the Philippines, down to Malaysia. And if you look at a map, and that'll tell you a lot about Chinese thinking, particularly military thinking, that First Island chain actually hems in the People's Liberation Army. It makes it very hard for them to get into the Pacific, to go east. But if China takes Taiwan, they have seized a lodgment right in the middle of the first island chain. And think of a castle wall being breached, and suddenly the attackers just pour in and keep going. And that's what would happen. And so if the People's Liberation Armies launches from Taiwan and goes up north, they can surround and isolate Japan. If they go down south, they can isolate Australia, cut it off from the US, cut it off from the rest of Asia. So militarily, it's very nice to have that as a platform. It makes operations farther east into the Pacific much easier to accomplish. And the Chinese objective is not to just stop at the first island chain, but rather it's to go all the way to the west coast of Latin America, where they are setting up the infrastructure, the ports and airfields, and the political influence, economic influence that they will need to deploy Chinese forces sometime in the future, not tomorrow, but it's part of the plan. And so that from a military perspective, it's very important. You ask yourself, if I was the Americans, my first front defense line has been breached. Well, that obviously is serious. But there's more to it than just the military operational issue. And that I would call the political psychological aspect of Taiwan and its importance. Suppose Taiwan comes under Beijing's rule.
What I will forever do, never be satisfied.